Hi everyone, it's Sandra from Sandra Bianco Photography, and on behalf of Greater Than Gatsby, I'm going to be editing this image from head to toe using the new Painterly Portrait Collection 2. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and the first thing I'm going to do is run the beginning brushes, but I'm going to go ahead and just click play them all. It takes a little bit longer for this to run when you do it this way, of course, but it's nice because they're going to all be in the same palette, and you can just go ahead and get your light retouching done right away without going back and forth and playing all of the actions. Okay, so once that's finished, I am just going to go ahead and use Painterly Pure Smoother. And I'm going to go ahead and bring my brush all the way up just so you can see the effect a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and reduce my opacity a bit. And then go ahead and go down her arms. And go ahead and enlarge that. So just give it a little bit of softness. The next thing I'm going to do is go into the Painterly Skin Tone palette. And she's already a bit magenta, so I definitely want to use something warmer on her. I'm going to go ahead and use Tone 1 to start. Got a little bit there on her hair, so I'm just going to go ahead and mask that off. And then I'm going to go ahead and reduce my opacity a bit. And then I'm going to go use Painterly Tone 7, and this I'm going to go ahead and use on her cheeks. I'm just masking off the edge there where I got it on a little bit. I always like to step it back. I'm going to go ahead and reduce that opacity just a little bit. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Golden Skin Shine. Just want to go ahead and paint this on her skin. And then I'm going to go ahead and reduce that opacity a little. And you can see there it's warming her up quite a bit, so that looks good. And then we are going to go down into our Painterly Eye Pop. That's just going to brighten up her eyes a little. I'll take that down a little bit. And then the lip smoother. I usually put this on at very low opacity, but I'm just going to go ahead and put that on so you can see what it's doing a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and reduce my opacity. Next thing I'm going to do is go into the Painterly hair texture. And I'm going to go ahead and reduce my opacity to about 50% on this. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint this on her hair. You'll see it's smoothing out the hair and also bring up the highlights just a little bit. So we're going to do a little bit more of that at the end. And we'll go to the other side. Reduce my brush a bit. And just do the top a little bit as well. Okay, so you can see what that's doing. Put that up a little bit. So it's just giving it a nice little glow and softness. The next thing we're going to do is go into our Clean and Simple foundations. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this. And I'm going to go ahead and run Tabula Rasa. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take that down. So it's just adding a little bit of brightness and contrast. And then we are going to go into our artistic tones. And I might run a couple of these for you just so that you can see what they do. Let's go into Last Supper. That gives it a nice rich darkness. Sleeping Gypsy. And that one's really pretty. I like what that does to the greens. And then Night Watch, I tend to lean towards the cooler grains, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it on Night Watch, and I'm just going to go ahead and reduce my opacity to my liking. But I really like what it's doing to the color of the leaves, and I like more of that winter green than I do the yellow greens, personally. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there on Night Watch, and then we are going to go down, and I don't need to do any shifting tones, but be sure to play with those because they're really good. And we're going to go right into our painterly textures. So on this image, I want to definitely go a bit heavier on my whole painterly effect. So I am going to go ahead and run Kalo. And this is in the heavy paint section. So you can see what that's doing, and I'm going to go ahead blow it up so you can see what it's even doing to the flowers. Now, those are looking a little bit too fake for my personal taste, but we kept this at this opacity just so that you can play with it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take it down a little bit, and I do like the softness of that look right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at 54%, and then I'm going to go ahead and mask this off of my subject. And any other details that you don't want this effect on, just mask it off. And if I wanted to, I could actually add a little bit more to the hair by just reducing my opacity of my brush and making sure I'm on my white brush, and I can go over her hair just a little bit more. And that's going to go ahead and give it that pretty softness. So we'll go ahead and leave that there so you can see what that's doing. Actually, I might take my opacity up just a little bit more. Okay, that looks good. Around 63%. I just want to give this one a real wow effect at the end. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and flatten this. And then I'm going to go into my Glowing Vibrance brush. And I like to keep this at about 50%. And I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the flowers on her headband. And I might go into her dress just a little bit. Kind of going a little bit more into the shadows of the dress. Just giving that a little bit more, you can see there, a little bit more pop. Then I'm going to go ahead and go into the Warm the Highlights brush. I'm going to go ahead and paint this onto my subject. And then I'm going to go ahead and reduce my opacity. And she's definitely looking nice and warm. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down into the tack sharp details. And I'm just going to go ahead and go over her face. That's going to go ahead and let me bring that up a little bit so you can see. That's just sharpening her up a bit. Actually, I'm going to bring my brush up just a little bit more. Go over that again. There we go. Just so you can see it better. And then I'll take that down a little bit. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our scenery blending brushes. I'm going to go ahead and click play. And once you get this pop-up box, you're going to be asked to select 3 different colors. So I'm just going to hit continue. Okay, and I usually start at the bottom. So I'm going to bring in one of the dark colors down there. Another tone is going to be this green. And then another tone, maybe this goldeny color here. And then I'm going to hit continue. So you can see you have your 3 colors that are already in your image here. So I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to reduce my opacity to about 20%. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start painting this on a bit to start blending it out. I'm going to work my way up. And I know it seems very faint and you can go stronger if you wish. Bring in a little bit more green here. And I might bring some just up on top over here to tone that little bit of white out. And then if you get anything on your subject while you're doing that, you can just click in the layer mask. And I will just take my brush at 100% and just go over it. I think I got a little bit on her hair there. And then you can see what that's doing overall. So I'm just blending in those tones a bit just to give it that nice, soft, pretty feel. I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. And then we're going to go into the finishing touches. So I'm going to go into contrast to clarity. And on this, I'm going to invert it. And I'm just going to get my brush at 100% and paint this onto my subject. And then I'm going to go ahead and reduce that a little bit. And then I'm going to go into hide the highlights. And I'm going to go ahead and reduce this a little. I'm doing this because she feels like she's a little bit in too much light. And I like this, how it's dimming the highlights on this a bit. And I want to add my own highlights when I'm going into my Dodge and Burn. So I'm not quite ready to see all of those highlights just yet. And that'll make more sense as we go along. Okay, and then I'm going to go into Shed the Shadows. And again, I'm going to invert this. And this time I'm just going to paint this onto her eyes. I'm going to go ahead and take that down a little bit. And then I'm going to go into Soften the Shot. I don't know where that came from. Okay, so Soften the Shot. That's just going to give it an overall softening. And I'm just going to go ahead and reduce my opacity a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and mouse this off of her eyes. Okay, it's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this. Next thing I'm going to do is go into my vignettes. You can also create your own here at the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and choose Majesty. I believe that's a little bit of a purpley one, which it is, and I just like how that all ties in together. So if I was to create my own, let me just delete that and show you. If I was to create my own on this image, I would go to my custom color vignette brush, click OK, and then I would just select one of the tones in her dress. And you can just paint this on like that. But I'm just going to go ahead and use Majesty. It's already there, and I like how it falls onto this image. going to take it down a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and mask this off of my subject. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. And if also run super depth vignette, that's going to give a lot of depth to the image if that's what you're after. And this particular one, I'm not. I like the way it's looking as is right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it there. And then the next thing we're going to do is go into our finishing tones. And I'm going to go ahead and run, I'll run a couple of these just so you can see expressionism. And that one's like pretty warm. I do like what that's really doing to her skin tone. So we might go back to that one. And then impressionism, slightly warm, and I'm going to run a cool one just to show you. And these will flatten after each one, so you're not going to be able to run them all, but just like you can see I'm clicking off, so it's not actually on there right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and run cubism. So you can see I do like that like Kelly green look in the background. I'm looking more at her skin tone right now though, as to what this is doing. And I think I'm going to stick with expressionism. And I'm going to go ahead and invert this. And I'm going to paint this onto my subject. One thing I'm going to do is mask this off of her hair if I got any on there, because her hair is already blonde, and you know blondes pick up all of those color casts. So I'm looking not to do that there. Okay, but I am liking her skin tone there. So I'm going to take that down a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and flatten. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my dodge and burn. So do either, I like to do my dodge and burn at the end of my image. I know a lot of people like to do it in the beginning, but I tend to do mine at the end of the image. So I'm just going to go ahead and select my dodge tool. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm on my midtones. I'm at 4%, which is pretty good right now. And then I am just going to go ahead and start dodging a little bit. I generally just go down the nose. I might add a little bit more shine to her lips. Trying to chisel out her lines here a little bit, and this will get a little bit more apparent once we burn. I go on the brow bone. And sometimes I like go and do a little dodging, and then I'll come back to this also. But I just want to dodge where the highlights are already there. So again, I'm doing this a bit stronger on this image, just for tutorial purposes so that you can really see. Go down the middle of her arm. She's got some highlight on her knuckles, so I want to get those nice and bright. And then I'm going to go ahead and go down her dress a bit. And this is probably the most time-consuming part of an edit. And normally I would be like super careful and super detailed with this. I'm trying to rush it a little bit so that you guys are not getting bored with me. Okay, so let's leave that at there for right now. And then I can turn that on and off so I can show you. And once we burn a little bit, it's going to become very apparent what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my burn brush. And this is where I'm going to go in to any of the shadows that I currently see there. And this is really going to go ahead and start defining our subject and giving that painterly feel. So I want to go into like the crease of her arm here and really bring out that detail with the burn. And I would also go in between her fingers. So bring out those shadows. And I'm increasing and decreasing my brush as I go. And we're going to move on to her face in a minute, but I just wanted to go ahead and get some of her arms done. Okay, that's looking good. Do a little bit more shadow in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I usually start like underneath the lip. It's going to give her a nice, more pouty look. And right between the Cupid's bow. And anywhere there's a line that you want to accentuate. So I'm pretty much accentuating her expression right now. And I can even use this on her eyebrows, on her lashes. And then I like to go around the hairline and under the chin. Bring that up so you can see there where I'm adding all that shadow. And then I can even go into her dress a little bit with the shadow. So if you want to accentuate those lines a little bit, just go into the shadows. Even on her waist, around her line here. Again, I'm going to do this super heavy just so you can see. A little bit more depth to her face. Okay. So see there how that makes a big difference just in her overall look. And also you can use this on the entire image too if you wanted to burn some of these twigs a little bit, anything where there's a shadow, and you can bring out all of those details as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and flatten that, and then the next thing I'm going to do is go into my Auto Dodge highlight pot, and I'm going to go ahead and just take that down. Just leave a little bit on there, it just gives it a little bit more highlight and glow. And then I am going to go run let's go back up and go back up to Discover the Details. And I'm going to go ahead and take that down a little. And I'm going to go ahead and invert that. And I'm just going to paint this onto my subject at 100%. Okay. And I'm going to flatten that. One more thing I forgot to show you is I want to go back into my Dodge tool and show you how I would go over the strands of her hair with this. So I would just take a couple strands that are already in the highlights. And this will just give her hair a little bit more depth. I'll show you there. Just a little bit. Okay, so that's the end of my edit. Let me show you the before and after. So this is before, And that is the after, before and after. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please visit greaterthangatsby.com to purchase this collection, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks, guys. Bye.